You know the name. Jay-Z, the billion-dollar empire, the music legend, the man who married a queen and built a throne out of pure, unadulterated hustle. He's the guy who looked us all in the eye and said, "I did it my way." And we believed him. But behind the spotlight, behind the cool, calculated swagger, there's another story. A story the cameras weren't supposed to catch. A story of tension, of power plays, of screaming silences, and carefully crafted apologies. This isn't the story of Sean Carter, the mogul. This is the story of the man behind the mogul and the cracks in the billion-dollar facade. And it all starts in an elevator. Let's set the scene. May 5th, 2014. The Met Gala after party, the glitz, the glamour, the A-list, the power trio, Jay-Z, Beyoncé, and her sister Solange, step into that now infamous elevator at the Standard Hotel in New York. The doors close, and for 1 minute and 22 seconds, the carefully constructed world of Jay-Z vanishes. What comes next is the sound of pure, unfiltered chaos. Solange launches at Jay-Z. Kicks, slaps, a purse flying. Security is right there, a shadow in the background trying to hold her back. But the rage is palpable. This wasn't a minor tiff. This was a volcano erupting in a sealed 4x6 box. And then the unthinkable happens. The footage leaks to TMZ. The internet, as you can imagine, collectively loses its mind. Now, the official statement, the one they released days later, they called it a private matter. Jay-Z would later say, "We had one disagreement ever. She's like my sister." But let's be real, nobody was buying that. The theories started flying, and one question echoed through every comment section, every blog, every group chat. What did he do in that elevator? Because according to fans and longtime followers, the answer was almost too simple. Cheating. The elevator fight wasn't the start of the problem. Oh no, it was just the first time the entire world got a front row seat to the fallout. Fast forward 2 years, the world is still whispering about that elevator. And then Beyoncé drops Lemonade. This wasn't just an album. This was a reckoning. A visual album so personal, so raw, it felt like a diary ripped open and set to a beat. Lyrics about betrayal, about Becky with the good hair, the imagery of smashing cars with a baseball bat. This was rage, sorrow, and a queen processing her pain in the most public way imaginable. She wasn't just telling her story. She was putting him on trial in the court of public opinion. And Jay-Z, the king of the castle, he had to respond. And he did, with 444, his own confession album.
What good is a menage a trois when you have a soulmate?
On the title track, he finally admits it. He raps about his wrongs, about almost losing his family, about the therapy, about breaking the cycle. It was hailed as a masterpiece of vulnerability, a mature, evolved man owning his mistakes. But as one brutally honest Reddit user wrote at the time, "Owning up doesn't erase what you did. It just makes it rhyme." And honestly, facts. But the dark side of Jay-Z isn't just about infidelity. Oh, honey, it goes so much deeper. It's about business, power, and a trail of controversy that follows the money. Let's rewind to 2015. Jay-Z buys the streaming service Tidal for around $56 million. He stood on stage with a dozen of the biggest artists in the world, promising a revolution. He promised fair pay for artists. He positioned himself as the savior of the music industry. But soon, the allegations started rolling in. Inflated subscriber numbers, unpaid royalties to independent artists. There was even an investigation for data fraud in Norway. Lawsuits piled up, Critics began to say that Tidal was less of an artist-friendly revolution and more of a Silicon Valley fever dream. And just when you think the story can't get any darker, it does. Late 2024. Jay-Z finds himself back in the headlines, and not for music. A civil lawsuit accuses him and Sean Diddy Combs of a horrific, unthinkable act. The sexual assault of a 13-year-old girl at an after-party back in the year 2000. Now, his legal team was swift and forceful, calling the claims, and I quote, provably and demonstrably false. But the internet doesn't wait for verdicts. Reddit filled up fast. A judge denied his motion to dismiss. And in the public eye, that's all that matters. For many, the narrative was set. His reputation, in some corners, was already gone. Jay-Z responded with a countersuit claiming extortion and defamation. The lawyer for the accuser reportedly backtracked on parts of the story. The truth, as it so often is in these high-stakes, high-profile cases, is buried somewhere in between. So here's the cheeky part, the part that keeps us all talking. Jay-Z stands as this incredible paradox. He built a legacy from nothing. Music, fashion, sports management, billions. But he also collects scandals like trophies. Think about it. You stream Reasonable Doubt, you binge 444, you maybe even bought into his Tidal revolution, and you still have to ask, how clean is all of this? Let's connect the dots one last time. When he got caught cheating, he dropped 444 and made millions from his own apology. When Tidal came under fire, he flipped it and sold it to Square for a reported $300 million. When the lawsuits hit, he disappears, lets his lawyers handle it, and the internet argues on his behalf. That's not just bad PR, that's power. Calculated, impenetrable power. But there's something haunting about his legacy. Behind every lyric, every apology, every boss move, there's a shadow. As one fan so poignantly put it, he talks about therapy and healing like it's branding, not growth. Another wrote, the elevator wasn't the headline. The headline was that when billionaire husbands fuse private with public, the break-in happens in a box you can't escape. In simpler terms, money doesn't make you clean. It just buys you a bigger megaphone for your story and a thicker wall of silence for everything else. So how will history remember him? As the king of hip-hop? Or as a man who turned his deepest flaws into his most profitable franchises? Because the cheating rumors, the elevator footage, the lawsuits, they're not just side notes. They are chapters, essential chapters in the story of Jay-Z, a man who built a dynasty and maybe, just maybe, lost a part of his soul in the process. When you listen to the story of OJ, it's not just a track, it's a confession. When you replay 444, it's not just redemption, it's a reflection. And when you see that elevator clip again, you realize that might have been the most honest 30 seconds of his entire career. Maybe for Jay-Z, it's never been about redemption. Maybe it's always been about reinvention. Because when you're on top, sometimes the only way to climb higher is to burn something down first.